Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. We are in different lighting than we were in before because it is later in the day and all I have on is a light above me and I haven't gotten everything set up so that the lighting is good. I have to figure out new ways to figure out how to make the lighting work for me. It's all going to be trial and error for a while. I apologize for the lighting ahead of time, but just bear with me. So yes, I opened up a few more boxes between this box and the last one I filmed, just because I realized really quickly that what was going to happen is I was going to open some boxes and they were going to be all me being like, hey, haven't read this, looks good, I'm excited. And I didn't think that would be very interesting to you guys. If you guys want to know what my TBR looks like, let me know in the comments below and I can update you on that at some point and do a video on that. But for right now, my TBR is pretty drastically large and I have piles of TBR books on the floor because I need to buy another bookshelf and thank goodness I have the space for it. So, yes, but this box is some TBR, some non-TBR, but it's all classics. So let's dive into this box. The first book I pull out is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This is about Lucy Snow. She is a governess and she is pretty unhappy with her existence as a governess. This has some sadness to it. It is Charlotte's most autobiographical story. I really loved this. I don't know if I loved it more than Jane Eyre. I thought I did upon first reread, or upon first read, but now that I've sat with it for a while, I really feel as if Jane is much more my character. I feel as if Lucy is similar to me because she's a little more harsh and a little more cold and a little more distraught and feels a little more negative. So I feel like she's closer to me, but I feel like I aspire to be more like Jane. So yes, there's that. Floor or floor. Then we have this beauty, which I tracked down after a lot of time. But yes, this is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This one is about the industrial Britain world and this very independent woman who is independently wealthy, I believe, if I remember correctly. I read this and I loved it. It's really based around a mill town and this man trying to decide whether to save the mills or just let them go down. And in the meantime, there is this woman who is trying to marry the independently wealthy woman, Shirley, who is not actually interested in marrying him, but is contemplating it. And it's a very feminist novel. I really enjoyed it, and I think that there's some really interesting conversation pieces to it. I wish there was more Charlotte Bronte. I really do. I need to read The Professor, and that's all I have left, and I'm kind of disappointed about it. Then I have The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. This one is about Helen, who has left an abusive relationship and is now living on her own in this small town, and people are talking about her and kind of gossiping about what she's there for and why she's alone, and there's a lot of judgment put on it, and it's about a woman trying to get away from a really abusive and unhealthy relationship in a time when it is very much frowned upon to have left that kind of relationship, no matter how bad it is. This is a really uncomfortable position. Then I have The Adventure of the Engineer Thumb and Other Cases by Arthur Conan Doyle. This one is a Sherlock Holmes novel that I have not read, so I definitely will pick this up at some point. I haven't read too much Conan Doyle, a little bit of it, but not a lot, and I feel like I'm missing something. When I think about it, I had bought a bind up of all the Sherlock Holmes novels, and I don't know what happened to it. I think I left it at my ex's house when I moved out of there, because I kind of moved out. Well, let me rephrase that. He moved me out. He broke up with me when I was away from home, and so he just moved all my stuff out. So I never got to clear out my own stuff. So I think some stuff got left. I don't think he cares about the book, but for some reason it didn't make it back into my possession. This is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I have read this. I loved it. I felt very saddened by it. 'Tis a far, far better thing that I do now. I adore this book, and I think, in all truth and honesty, it is my favorite Dickens that I have read so far. I do plan to read Bleak House, but it's going to be hard to go against this one. I did recently read A Christmas Carol during December and forgot to mention in my wrap-up because I listened to it on Audible, but I really enjoyed that as well, and I do plan to pick that up in an English library edition, so I have it on my shelf. But as of right now, I do not have it on my shelves. So yes, but I did enjoy it immensely. Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. I don't think I buddy read this with anyone. I feel like I did, but I didn't. I listened to this one on Audible, and I liked it. It was interesting and redeemable, and it had really interesting family dynamics, and there were some really lovely characters in it who I adored, and I felt very attached to Florence, who is such a sweet girl. Like, I loved Florence immensely, and I felt really connected to her. But overall, this was one of those, like, you're with this family for so long that it just feels like someone you know by the end of it. And I felt really compelled by this story, and I really enjoyed it. So that's a good one. Don't fall. Do not fall. Stay. So those are the English... Nope, we have another English library edition. Aha! Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. This one is... Molly Gibson. I loved Molly Gibson. I definitely felt really connected to her, and I felt like she was just the sweetest could be. And her stepsister Cynthia was quite sweet too in her own little way. There was definitely some romance elements to it that I enjoyed, but I didn't love. I am not a big romance fan in general, so reading classics with romances in them don't always work for me. But I enjoyed it as it was. I was disappointed in the end, but there you have it. I didn't like the ending of it, but otherwise I really enjoyed it. And I have picked up another Gaskell to read. Where is it? Haha. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I've picked this up to read this one. I have not read this one yet, and I am very intrigued by it. I've heard good things, and some people say that it's better than Wives and Daughters, so yes. Middlemarch by George Eliot. I read this, and it's about a woman who marries a man that she thinks she loves, and she gets into this relationship with him, and then she gets into a relationship kind of with his cousin, and his will says that she cannot have her inheritance if she marries his cousin, and it's weird. And again, there's some romance in it, and it's just a long-ass saga. It is a long-ass book, and don't get me wrong, I listened to it on audio, and I enjoyed it, but it is long. Oh my gosh, it is long AF. I could have gone with like less than, like with 200 pages less, and I would have been happy. But I'm going to keep it on my shelves. I enjoyed it. I will probably reread it again someday when I have the urge to dive into something a little more chunky and that kind of keeps me more intrigued. Because I've heard so many great reviews of this, and I've seen so many people dissect it, and I didn't really dissect it. I just read it for what it was, and I didn't really dive into the deeper meanings of it. So I feel like I missed some things, and I do plan to go back and revisit it. Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It is a Sherlock Holmes novel, and, you know, I know this story from Wishbone. So I want to see how accurate Wishbone was. Usually Wishbone is pretty damn accurate. So that's a good fact to know. Alright, and now we go into the Penguin Modern Classics. Ta-da! So we have Patrick Süskind's Perfume. I read this. The thing about this that I really enjoyed was the description. It was grotesque and vile to read some of the descriptions. They were so overwhelming and in your face as far as smell went. But as an overall thing, I really liked reading about the smells and the sights of the city, and this overwhelming feeling of sense of smell was just so palpable and so different and almost magical realism-esque in its own way, but without being fully magical realism. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Did I love the characters? No, I didn't feel 100% connected to the characters, but I loved the description, and I definitely think that someday I will reread it just to dissect it and rip it apart for my own purposes. Shirley Jackson's Hangs a Man. I need to pull this out because I think this is the one I want to read next. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people say that it's super, what's the word I'm looking for? Academic. And I can see Shirley Jackson going that route. I am trying to get through all of her books, and I need to read one for this month. So I think it's going to be this one. I am super stoked, and I am going to dive into that. Then we have Muriel Sparks, The Driver's Seat. I feel like I don't want to talk about this one because I've read it, I enjoyed it, but I don't want to spoil it. And I think that it's such a little book that you really could spoil it pretty easily. It follows this woman who decides one day that she's going to leave everything behind and transform herself. And that's all I'm going to tell you. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I do have more Muriel Spark as a result of it that I want to read. More Shirley Jackson, Dark Tales. This is short stories. It is in the Penguin Modern Classic Edition, but it is in mint green. So it is going to go higher because I can't put it with the white ones because it won't look right. And that's just going to bother me, which is going to bug me. I am very happy with having this. Like, I am super happy to have it. I'm very grateful. But, like, it doesn't match, and that bothers me. It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. I read this right after Trump came into power, and it can happen here. It frickin' can. And I am pissed and livid and scared and overwhelmed, and this book kind of confirmed a lot of my fears and made it so that I was just like, nah, I can't. And so, yeah. Lots of feelings on this one. Lots of thoughts and feelings. Oh boy, now we're gonna get into some Shirley Jackson. So we have Shirley Jackson's The Sundial, Shirley Jackson's The Road Through the Wall, Shirley Jackson's The Lottery and Other Stories, and Shirley Jackson's Let Me Tell You. Haven't read any of them. So excited to have all of them. That is happening. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. Angela Carter, The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. I really enjoy Angela Carter and I need to read more of her. So I have this one and I plan to read it soon. I want to get more of hers. I plan to get more of her. Yeah, I really like Angela Carter. So I plan to get more of her, but this one I haven't read yet. I read The Bloody Chamber, and I read, the fairy tales, no, something else that had to do with fairy tales. I can't remember, but I don't own it. I borrowed it from a friend, and I had to give it back, which was very upsetting. Very upsetting. And then the last book, box down. Ow! And then the last book is Bastard Out of Carolina by Dorothy Allison. I adore this book, and I haven't really talked about it very much, which I feel really guilty about, but I feel like this is such a personal story to me that it's almost hard for me to share it with anybody, because the abuse that Bones suffers is so real to me and so hard to just grasp and swallow and dissect. It's so difficult for me to share the experience I had of the abuse that Bone suffered, because I just feel so close to Bone and like I want to hug her and take care of her for the rest of her life. And I can't, because she's a fictional character. But I want to save her. I want to save her forever. And I can't. So it makes me very sad. But I really love this book. I really love this book, and I haven't talked about it enough. And it probably should be on my favorite books of all time shelf. But I just haven't moved it there, and I don't really have space there right now. I would have to take something off the shelf. And I don't know what I would take off the shelf. If anyone would like to see my favorite books of all time shelf, a tour, or just all the books on the shelf, let me know in the comments below. This should be there, but it's not. Because there's no space. I have no space. It's not true. I have enough space, but like, I don't have enough space. It's kind of ridiculous. And basically the only thing I would have to move, I should just move one of my editions of Alice in Wonderland off the shelf, and then she'd be able to fit just fine. Okay, so I've solved my own problem. Why was that so complicated, Acacia? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I am super excited to have finished this. I've got 4 more boxes to go. I will film one more in case you guys really want to see one more. But otherwise, I'm just going to unbox the crap out of these books because I want to get this done tonight. And yeah, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions, comments, or quandaries, go ahead and comment in the comment section. And I shall see you all in the next video.